lot of things for us, and it's going to be a really good time. So I'm going to pray for her, and then we're just going to get started with that. Yeah. Okay. Awesome, God. Thank you so much for the fun that we get to have at the pier. God, thank you for each and every one of these teens and leaders who are here. And God, thank you for Stephanie, that she's able to share with us her experience and her knowledge about so many issues, God. So just thank you for your word, that we can use it, and we can use it to teach us how to live and how to glorify you. So God, thank you for tonight. Teach us something new. Amen. All right, let's give it up for Stephanie.
Is to talk until about 7:10, so that gives me about 20 minutes, and then I'd like to open it up for questions on this topic if we want to do a whole room, and if we don't have a lot, I can just keep talking, but I want to give a pause and see if there's anything that you guys would specifically like to know about. I want to start with, does anybody, we'll keep doing raising hands, because that's been working really well. Does anybody know who my boss is? I see that hand.
Tim Hanks.
Pastor Timmy Hanks, yeah, he doesn't, I don't know if you guys see him around the church a lot. Who has seen Pastor Timmy around church? Okay, so see, not as many as I thought maybe would have, because he kind of hides back in his counseling office, and I'm back there too. So Pastor Timmy is the counseling pastor here at Calvary. He's my boss. He's training me how to be a biblical counselor. So that means I don't just tell people like, oh, here, listen to this, and you might feel better. I go straight to God's Word, and Pastor Timmy is helping me learn how to do that. And we look at what God has to say about whatever the issue is. And then that's where we get our results from. Now, different than what another counselor might say, like, I hope this helps you, I can say, I know this will help you, because God doesn't lie. So that is what I do. I'm here on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. And if you guys ever have any questions, things that don't get covered tonight, or a totally different topic from tonight, either Pastor Timmy or I would love to sit down and answer some of your questions for you. So I just wanted to throw that out there. All right, let's start with, since we're talking about the heart and emotions, help me list some emotions that humans have. We're just going to go super quick. 1. Sadness. Hate. Anger. Joy. Greed. Aggression. Depression. Very good. Selfishness.
Joy.
Okay, we're getting some of the happy ones here. Hunger. I could see like a desire for something, maybe not in your body, but in your soul. Okay, good.
Caffeinated.
Which one is it?
Caffeinated.
Caffeinated. That would be an interesting study. Okay. So now the question, do you remember, just take a second, think through some of those emotions we listed off, and I want you guys to decide which ones you think God created us to be able to feel. Of all the ones we heard listed, which ones did God give us the ability to feel? Joy? Okay. I saw the arms and I found the room. Yes, sir. Anger. Okay. And she wins it. Bing, 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 bing. All of the emotions. Because did Satan create anything? No. God created everything. He created it good, the Bible says. And then Satan came along and he wanted to corrupt, destroy the good things that God has made. So I want you to think about, let's pick one of those darker emotions that you're like, I'm not sure that God made me to feel that, because that's a pretty dark emotion, like maybe anger. Is it ever appropriate to feel angry? Does anybody have an example? When would it be appropriate? You can use an example from the Bible, even that's safe, right? Or another example. Jesus in the temple was the exact one that I was thinking of. He got angry when he saw people using the temple, which is there to help people worship God and be in relationship with God. And those people were using it to make money for themselves. And rightfully so, that made Jesus angry. So even there we see, well, anger is a dark emotion, and yet Jesus felt angry. So anger is appropriate and okay in some places. So I don't want you to think of, oh, this emotion is bad and this emotion is good. God made us with all of the emotions, and there are right times to show them. Kind of like if you want to build a fire in your fireplace, right? Is that good or bad? Good. Building a fire in the fireplace, there's nothing wrong with it. What about if you build a fire in the middle of your living room? All of a sudden, that good thing, the fire that was going to keep you warm or maybe toast a marshmallow, it went from being a good thing to being a very dangerous bad thing, right? And that's kind of how our emotions can be. When they're used in the right way, the way that God intended them to be, they are super good. And not used in the right way, can be very destructive for us. All right, so thinking through, like even happy. Happy is a good emotion, right? What about if you're happy when you see someone you don't like get hurt? Is being happy good in that spot? Now, see, so we have to start thinking a little differently about our emotions. All right, so I heard someone say sadness, and I want to start with that emotion. Are there times that it is appropriate to be sad? Let's see if we can list the different times it would be good even to be sad. It's appropriate. I have 5. Let's see if you can guess one of my 5. A family member dies. So we're going to put that in when you are suffering, when you're sad, or when you lose someone that's important to you. Okay, does anybody have another idea? When's it appropriate? When you're injured, whether that's your body or somebody hurts your emotions. If you're sad because somebody hurts you, that's appropriate. Do we have any other examples? When is it okay to be sad? If you're feeling depressed, so somebody maybe said something hurtful to you, are you just going to be able to say, I decide to stop feeling sad? No, you can't do that. It might be appropriate to be sad about that thing. Let's think a little outside of the box. We've been talking a lot about things that happen to us. Can you think a little outside of the box? What else might be appropriate to be sad about?
When one of your friends is like getting bullied or something.
When you see someone you care about suffering, I would hope that you would get a little sad then when that happens. Okay, let's see how many we've covered. When you are suffering, when someone you love is suffering, I think we talked about if someone dies, so when you have to say goodbye to someone, that might be they died, it might be they moved away. That's appropriate. Anybody here have any hopes and dreams? Raise your hand if you have a hope or a dream. I hope I see every hand go up. Okay, good. Now, put your hand back up if you've ever had a hope or dream not come true. Should be every hand too, right? Because we live in a world with sin, so that's going to happen sometimes, and that's appropriate to be sad about. There's one category that no one, oh, I see a shaking hand, yes.
When you're overwhelmed.
When you're feeling overwhelmed, yes, so maybe something bad is going on. There's one category we haven't touched on yet. I kind of thought it would be the first one, so this is good. One more person wants to try to read my mind? You think you know what my one last category is? Stress? No. I wrote down, when you sin and grieve God, you should feel sad. Now that doesn't mean he wants to leave you feeling that way, but if you don't even feel that at first, you might need to do some looking. Why was I not sad that I broke one of God's laws, made him sad, and I tell people I care about him, but I didn't care when I made God sad. So I'm going to actually spend just a little bit of time on that one, and then I'm going to go back to some of those other topics we were talking about, but that's an important one. Because we're always going back to the Bible, right? I want to read 2 Corinthians 7:10 for you. Paul was writing to a church. They had been sinning, and it was making God very sad, so Paul wanted to talk to them about that. He said, for godly sorrow produces repentance, leading to salvation, not to be regretted. But the sorrow of the world produces death. So what I'm hearing there is that there's 2 different kinds of sorrow. There's a world's sorrow, and I think we could probably call that depression. And then there's the depression, or the sadness rather, that God brings because he wants us to get something right. He wants to take that away, take whatever the sin was away so that we can go back to being happy and in a good relationship with him. So if we're going to call world sorrow depression, I want you to realize if that's the world's kind of sorrow, and the verse says that sorrow of the world produces death, depression can sometimes end in death. What kind of death does depression sometimes end in? Suicide, exactly. And God would never want us to do that. So we know that's the world's sorrow. That's not God's kind of sorrow. Some of the things that can contribute to depression is when you're feeling guilt for the wrong reason, or God made you feel guilty about something because he wants you to change something, and you say, I refuse. Those are the 2 reasons you can feel worldly sorrow or depression that God doesn't want. When you say, God, I know that that's a problem, and I'm not going to do anything about it. I refuse to obey. You're going to start feeling worse and worse. God didn't want that for you, but it will happen. And then the other times when you're feeling guilty for something that God doesn't even want you to feel guilty for. That can lead to depression, and it can bring a lot of sorrow and a lot of death feelings. Okay, so now that we have our basis for what we're talking about tonight, I'm going to try to flip my page if I can. I want to talk about what the different topics of tonight will be, and I'll try to go through them quickly so we have time for questions. We're going to talk a little bit more about depression. We're going to talk about self-injury, suicide, suicidal and anxiety. So that's kind of where we're going. So you ready to buckle in and hang on, because we've got a lot to do, right? First, I want to talk about the difference between suicide and suicidal thoughts. If you've ever been to a doctor or a therapist, or maybe, I don't know, someone in a professional workplace might have said, oh, do you have suicidal ideations? That just means, were you thinking about suicide? Did you have suicidal thoughts? Okay? So let's talk about the difference between those two things. Does anybody remember, what's my favorite book in the Bible?
Job.
Job, very good, okay. And he was someone who suffered a lot, right? He lost 10 kids. His wife was picking on him. 3 of his friends were picking on him. He got really nasty boils all over his body. All of his animals, which was basically his money, all of his money is gone. So talk about bad things happening to a person. Why did I like that book? I'll get to that in a second. Listen to what Job said after all those bad things happened to him. Why did I not perish, die at birth, and die as I came from the womb? Why is light given to those in misery, and life to the bitter of soul, to those who long for death that does not come, who search for it more than for hidden treasure, who are filled with gladness and rejoice when they reach the grave? Is Job having a good day? No. He's having a lot of suicidal thoughts. I don't know if you knew that there are people in the Bible that have suicidal thoughts, but there's actually a couple of them in there. And when Job starts feeling those things, he decides to do something with that. He decides to take action. Did he start to plan his death? Is that how he took action? He actually took the other kind of action. He said, I'm feeling this way, and I know God doesn't want me to feel this way, so I'm going to take action in the good direction. I'm going to talk to some friends, and I'm going to talk to God. Now, some of his friends weren't the best friends, and they didn't have good advice for him. One friend had awesome advice, so I'm glad he talked to him. And then when he talked to God, God had awesome things to say as well. But, so the difference between having suicidal thoughts and being suicidal is when you have the thoughts, what do you do with them? Do you decide to take action and start moving towards suicide by, okay, well, how could I do it? And when would I do it? And would I write a note? And you start making plans to do it? And God says, no, when you have a suicidal thought, take action, but in the right way. Go talk to people that you trust who can give you good advice and tell you the truth about how you're feeling, and talk to me, and I will help you through those things. So suicidal thoughts is actually more common than you might think. Even in the Bible, there's quite a few times in there. I definitely had some times in my life where I was like, man, whatever I'm going through right now is hurting so bad, I wish it would just be over and done. And if the way it could be over would be that I would be dead, fine, let's do that. Okay, God, I'm ready. Strike me with lightning. I'm done. Obviously, he did not do that. I have not been struck by lightning. But I had those thoughts. But I did not start making any plans to make it happen. Even though I kind of wished for it in that moment, I decided to take action and talk to people who I knew cared about me, and they helped me pray and figure out what it was that was hurting so bad on the inside. Okay, so that's the difference between suicide and suicidal thoughts. Now I want to talk a little bit about if you're the person with the suicidal thoughts, what you should do, okay? Well, what did Job do? Who can remember the 2 things that Job did? What do we got? Yes, ma'am? He went to God and he asked his friends. And he asked some friends that he thought were good and they turned out to not be so great. One of them was, so hopefully we can learn from Job's example, pick people that are going to be wise and tell you things that would agree with what God would say. So those are 2 awesome things to do if you have suicidal thoughts. I would recommend highly that person be a Christian, because then you know they're going to tell you the truth and not just play guessing games with you and hope they're giving you the right answers. I would recommend that you find someone who's not going to judge you right away. Does anybody know what a judgmental answer would sound like? You go to your friend and say, I think I'm having some suicidal thoughts. What would a judgmental person maybe say to you that would make you feel worse, not better? Can anybody think in their head? You're a bad person. You're sinning. You're bad for feeling that way. It's not going to make you feel any better, right? What else?
Or if they say it's not, your life isn't that bad.
Yeah. Just get over it. You'll be fine. Oh, okay, that didn't help at all either, right? What else would a judgmental person say? You're being so dramatic. Just stop. Get over it. Don't think about this anymore. So I would recommend start thinking through, you know what? This is a good friend most of the time, but that person might say something that might make it worse. I want to look for people who are going to say, Okay, so you're feeling that way. Can we talk about maybe why that's going on? How can I help? I want to pray with you. Do we need to go talk to someone? I'll go with you. You want to find someone who can support you when you're feeling that way. I would also recommend finding someone who's going to keep it to themselves unless it's a dangerous situation. So here's what you wouldn't want. You know, yesterday my grandpa died, and it's just making me super sad because he was the only person I could talk to, and I kind of wish I would die so I could just be with him because I don't want to be here anymore. And you tell your friend, and your friend goes, oh my goodness, you'll never guess what Stephanie just said. That's not helpful, right? Now, if I say, you know what, grandpa died, and I'm so sad, I think I'm going to go home and do something myself. Should your friend keep it to herself anymore? No, because you've moved from thinking that you're very sad and having suicidal thoughts to, wow, my friend is making plans to hurt herself. I need to go get some help for her. Because when she starts to feel better, she wouldn't want to do that anymore. She's not herself right now because she's really upset. So you never want to have any regrets and think, wow, I wish I had told someone that my friend was actually starting to make plans, that it was pretty serious. Here's a good way that you can decide if that's how important it is. If my friend comes to me and says, really rough time, I'm having suicidal thoughts, in fact, I started to put together a plan for how to do it, but I don't think I will. So now I go home and I'm like, man, so is this serious or is it not serious? She didn't decide. How do I can't make this decision by myself. I'm gonna go to a trusted adult and say, hey, teacher or small group leader or pastor, this is something my friend said. I'd appreciate it if you keep it between us while we talk about it. Do you think this is serious enough that we need to tell their parents, call the police, maybe to keep them safe? Like, they might be home right now doing something, and I don't know. Adults that I trust help me make that decision. Adults are going to be way better at helping make that decision than you by yourself. And if they say, you know what, no, that person's okay. If they say, they just had some suicidal thoughts today, if you want, tell them we can talk about it together. They can help you make that decision so you don't have to do it all by yourself, because that's really a scary decision to make by yourself. All right, we've been covering some good stuff. Now I'm going to get into the rest of it. I want to talk about depression a little bit here. First thing is a good description for you. It's not being in a bad mood because something bad happened. That's called sadness, right? It would be getting stuck in sadness and you feel like it's controlling you. So if that description helps a little bit. But let me give you some of the things that people will say about depression. It's being persistently sad, like it never stops. You're anxious, you're empty. You just don't feel like you feel a whole lot. Hopelessness, being very pessimistic, irritable, feelings of guilt or worthlessness or helplessness. You're not interested in things that you used to like to do. You don't have a lot of energy. You're tired all the time. You're moving and talking more slowly. Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you have a hard time sitting still. Like you just kind of feel like you're jumping out of your skin a little bit. Can't concentrate very well. Hard time falling asleep. Hard time staying asleep. Or you're sleeping all the time and you can't seem to stop. Do you see how some of these things are opposite? It hits everybody a little bit differently, so keep that in mind. You're eating a ton more than you normally do, or you're eating way less than you normally do. Some of those things can be a sign of it. You're having thoughts about suicide, or you've even started putting a plan together. That can be part of depression. Or maybe you have a lot more like aches and pains, headaches, things like that than you're used to. You're like, what's going on? Those could be signs of depression. So, how does depression get started? Does anybody have any guesses? What are some things that might make a person feel depressed? Let's do some listing again. Yes, ma'am?
Just like something in general that makes them really hard to move out
So-
emotionally.
Something really hard happened, and you just haven't been able to move out of feeling sad for it. So instead of just being sad, it feels like you're stuck in the sadness. So we're going to put that in the grief column, like something's really sad. Okay, good. Yes, ma'am?
Me?
Yes.
You just have a lot of things going on, so you're really stressed, and you're always worrying about all these other things, or if you're, like, yeah.
Okay, good. I'm going to put stress in the category. Very good. Yes, sir?
When you're being bullied,
When you're being bullied, so that would be something really hard to go through. Yes, ma'am?
When someone does something or you do something that you can't like forgive yourself for or
Yes, I have guilt written down. Remember, there's two kinds of guilt. There's guilt that God wants you to feel so you get something fixed with Him, and then there's guilt that is not true. So we have to kind of keep an eye on guilt. Yes, ma'am? Sin, absolutely. And I have one more on my list, actually two more. Trauma is when something really big and bad happens to you. It could have been a long time ago. Could have been when you were 3 or 4 years old, but you remember and you know that it happened, and you've never been able to quite forget about how bad it was. It still makes you feel bad now. That would be a trauma. Okay? Sometimes when people go to war and they come back, they have been traumatized by what they saw. It was so big and so scary that they can't quite move on. It can even happen when you're not in war, though. Someone goes into a grocery store and they put a gun to someone's head right in front of you and say, "Give me all your money." Just watching that could make you feel some trauma. And if you don't have someone safe to talk about how scary that was with, that trauma can start turning into depression in your life. Okay, there's one more, and that would be things within your body, like hormones. Has anybody traveled so far in an airplane that they experienced jet lag? I don't mean you got back from family vacation and you were tired and you wanted to take a nap. I mean jet lag. Jet lag is when you feel like you're really off, you can't concentrate, you're shaky, your stomach hurts. It is no fun at all. You want to sleep and you can't, or it's just rotten. When I get jet lag, I get super depressed because all the chemicals in my body are out of whack. So when I come back from a long trip, I take another 3 days off of work because I know my chemicals, my hormones are all messed up from that weird travel and how the sunlight affected when I was sleeping. And I know I need a little extra time to get over the depression that it actually causes. So there can be chemicals in our body that cause it as well. All right, that was a lot. We're moving on to the next category. You ready? Self-injury. Most people usually think of cutting when they hear this one, but that's not the only kind of self-injury we can do. There is intentionally causing yourself to feel pain because you feel like you can't control a lot of chaotic, crazy things going on around you, and you just want to have something that you can control. It might be cutting with something sharp. It might be doing something with food that you know you shouldn't, or isn't good for you, it makes you feel pain. It might be putting yourself in an emotional situation where you know you'll be hurt by someone. They'll say something mean to you, and you go into it on purpose because you want to feel that pain. So there's a lot of different kinds of self-injury. Usually, people are doing this to cope with things like sadness or guilt that hasn't been taken care of. You'll do it if you feel like you can't express with your mouth what you want people to see that you're feeling, so you use this. It helps you feel like you're in control, especially if there's a lot of things out of your control. And it might make you feel a little bit more alive. You don't feel as numb anymore. Okay, so you're feeling all those crazy things, and you do some kind of self-injury. And for a little bit of time, what do you feel? Well, you feel the pain, but what's the emotion? Happy. And does it last for very long? No. Eventually the pain comes right back. So here are some of the warnings that I found about why self-injury, even though it's like, well, it helps a little bit for a little while. Here's why it's so dangerous. It's usually followed by shame and guilt. And that's how we usually get into the problem in the first place. So it's actually making our problem bigger, not smaller. Keeping that secret usually makes us feel more lonely. On the back page, I have a few more. You can hurt yourself badly even if you don't mean to, so it can escalate and get you into trouble quickly. You could be at risk for other bigger problems later on, and it can become an addictive thing that you can't control anymore, and you can't stop. So you do it to control things, and then all of a sudden even that's not in your control. So it can be very dangerous. All of these big, bad, horrible things. What did Job do? When the big, bad, horrible things happen, what did Job do? 2 things. He turned to God, and he praying is talking to God. He went to some trusted friends, and one friend in particular did an awesome job reminding him of what was true, not what was stuck in Job's head. Okay? So no matter what these crazy things are, the solution is really hard to do. Going to talk to people can be super scary. Talking to God about it might even feel scary, but it's simple. God did not make it complicated for us. He said if you're feeling yucky things, the worst thing you could do is pretend they're not there and stuff them down and say, I'm not going to talk to anybody about this. I can promise they're not going to get better. They're actually going to get worse. And that's what all these different things are. It's just when we stuff down the hard things that we're dealing with and we don't know who can help us know what's true about them. All right, so anxiety, just a little bit about that, because it's kind of related related to these things. Is fear bad? No. Fear stops us from doing something dangerous. I would hope you'd be afraid to run into the middle of the road when there's lots of traffic, because it's trying to keep you out of danger, right? Anxiety, though, stops you from doing things that are good, things that you like. So that's the difference there. And let's talk about animals that are fearful or in anxiety. What are the 2 things that animals will do if they're scared? Should have learned this in science class by now. Hide is the first one. That's, it's kind of like freeze. Okay, so there's kind of 3. Fight, or, now does it ring a bell? If the animal's afraid it will eat you, that would be fighting, I suppose. What? Flight, very good. Fight or flight are the 2 things that animals do when they're afraid. And it's also what we do when we're afraid. What does fighting look like if you're a person? It may not be with your fists. What do you think? What does fighting look like? Not with your fists, maybe.
Maybe like inside your body, you have like a sickness, your body can fight it.
Okay, yeah, we do fight off bad things, which is good. Yeah.
It could be like verbally, like hurting someone.
Okay, you want to get the control back, so before they hurt you, you hurt them with your words. Like, give me that control. I'm not going to let you do this to me. That's a kind of fighting. And then flight is avoiding the problem. I'm just going to pretend it's not there. I'm not going to talk to anybody. I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm just going to avoid it. And fight and flight is not what God calls us to do, even though that's what we naturally want to do. He says, no, bring what you're afraid to me. Let's talk about what you're afraid of and what I can do to help you with that. And if your brain has gotten so confused by anxiety that you're like, I don't even know how to talk to God about this anymore, then go to that trusted Christian teacher or leader or Pastor Timmy or myself, and we'll help you look at the verses and say, okay, do we need to be anxious about this? No, God's got this. He's in control. You don't have to worry about protecting yourself. He'll be there with you. All right, I went a little bit over my time. So I'm ready for a few raise of hand questions, and then if we don't have a lot, I'll get into the questions you wrote down ahead of time. Does anybody have some raise of hand questions?
I had another thing with animals, they make themselves look scary.
That is true. It's a form of fighting, right? I'll freak you out with how big I look. Okay? Yes.
Why did you decide to have this job? What were you doing?
That's a great question. So I was a middle school teacher for 2 years, but my favorite part of the day was after the last bell rang and all the kids would mostly leave and go home, except for a few. Mostly their parents didn't have time for them, so they got stuck in school longer. And they would come into my room and say, Miss Clayhurst, I'm feeling very sad about, and then they would talk about it. And that was my favorite part of the day, because I knew that by talking about it, they weren't going to have all these other bad things happening. So I wanted to let them have a chance to talk and be that trusted person. I was like, why do I just want to do this for an hour every day? Let's do this for 8 hours every day. So now that's what I'm doing. Yes?
What do you do because like no one really trusted
If you haven't thought of someone, you don't know someone that you can trust, I would pray and say, God, I know that you want me to have people that can help. That's why he designed a church, right? If Jesus wanted us to be Christians all by ourselves, he would just send us all to separate islands alone. But he doesn't want that. He wants us to be together and help each other through the hard things. He wants us to bear each other's burdens. So since I know God wants that for every single one of us, if you pray and say, God, send me someone who I can trust to help me talk about these things, he will do it. Any other questions? Should I go into your written ones? Okay, here we go. What do you do if your friend says they're suicidal? Can anybody after today's talk answer that one for me based on what we talked about today? Here's your chance to practice. I'm going to go with blonde hair like me in the back.
I would do,
If your friend is feeling suicidal.
talk to them, and if, you don't exactly know how to help, you don't exactly know how to help them, like what you're saying is you're exactly helping them, then you should go to, like, a guidance counselor.
Absolutely. And encourage them to go if they would feel open to that. So the first thing she said is talk to them. So that means that she's listening, she's willing to talk, she's not judging. And then number 2, let's go find someone who's older than us, maybe a little smarter, maybe has read this a little more than we have, and let's see what the Bible has to say, not about how bad you are, but about how much God wants to help you. All right, do you have a question about that, or another thought? Okay, I'm going to try to move to as many of these as I can because I know you guys wrote them down. What's the best thing to do when you feel anxious and guilty for no reason at all? I'm going to change that question. You might be feeling guilty for a wrong reason. You might be feeling guilty for a right reason. But I promise there's some kind of reason that you're feeling that way. We don't just wake up and it hit us like a bolt of lightning in the night. Something's going on in here or here. If you can't figure out what it is, that's okay. There are many times that I cannot figure out why I'm feeling stressed or anxious. Like, I need to go talk to somebody so they can ask me some questions and help me figure out what's going on in here, because I can't figure it out. And almost always, they have been able to help me do that. Or talking to God has helped me do it. So, I use Job's 2 methods. Friends who are trusted, who know him, and talking to God. All right. Do I have anxiety today? What do you guys think? Yes. I have some things right now in my life that are kind of freaking me out, and I'm talking to God about them, and I'm talking to people I trust about them, and I'm not pretending they're not there, because I know they are. Why do I get more anxious at night? What are we doing all day long? I'm busy, I'm over here doing this and doing this. What happens at night? We sit there, and we start thinking. Some of those thoughts might be reminding us, remember that thing God wanted you to take care of and you didn't fix it? God's going to bring that back to your mind. Maybe there's something that someone told you that is not true, but you're feeling guilty about it. That's going to come back to your mind at night because you finally stopped moving. So whatever that is that you're thinking about at night, pay attention to it and say, okay, God, is this true? Is this not true? Who can I talk to about this? I want to figure out if I'm feeling guilty or anxious for the wrong reasons. All right, what do you do when somebody does not want to be your friend anymore? Ouch, it hurts every time, right? Okay, if somebody does not want to be my friend, I am going to be sad, and I'm going to probably need to go talk to someone different about how sad I'm feeling. But if they don't want to be my friend, that's their choice. And it stinks a little bit, but I have to let them make that choice. What would be an emotion that Satan would want to change that sadness into? What does he want me to feel instead of just sadness? Anger, bitterness, right? So be talking to people, be talking to God and say, okay, I don't want to let this sadness over my friend, which I should be feeling sad. I don't want to let it turn into the wrong thing. Have I ever committed suicide? Well, I'm still here, so no. But have I ever felt suicidal? Yes, I've had suicidal thoughts when I had really bad days, especially when I'm jet lagging. Okay. If your family is part of the thing that is making you feel depressed, and it feels like they blame everything on you, and you start to hate life, what should you do? What do you guys think I'm going to say? Tell an adult, talk to God, right? Those are the 2 things that are going to help. No matter how big and how sad it is, talking to God and talking to someone who knows God very well is going to help. It'll be some painful, hard work, but it's way better than trying to push it down, because that stuff gets all nasty and it comes popping back up when you don't want it to. And I'm not saying that that's not hard. That's probably one of the hardest things we deal with, is things that our families do that hurt us, because they're supposed to love us, right? That's why God gave them to us. So that is one of the hardest things, and you are definitely going to need someone else's help probably to figure out what God wants you to do about it. What's the best thing to do when you have a panic attack and can't breathe, or you feel like you can't breathe? Well, first of all, take that as a sign that there's something stuck down in there that needs to get figured out, right? So, okay, who do I need to talk to help me figure out where that's coming from? But in that moment, just taking deep breaths as soon as you can and saying, you know what, it's not wrong to feel panicky. God is using this to help show me that there's something stuck inside my heart that needs to be looked at so he can take care of it with me. What causes stress? Living on this earth does. And we will need God's help to do that. What should I do if I feel like I have no purpose? How many people on the planet do you think are born with no purpose? What percentage of people are born with no purpose? A bit more than 50%? I'm going to go with 0. If you were born, God has a purpose for you. So if your brain is saying something different, guess where that came from? Satan. He wants us to feel like we have no purpose because it's a lie other than what God wanted us to feel. How do I know if I'm depressed? Do you guys remember any of the symptoms? What are some of the things that it looks like if you're feeling depressed and a sign that you should maybe go talk to someone? Not wanting to eat or eating too much. Very good.
Not wanting to sleep.
Not wanting to sleep or sleeping too much. Okay, very good.
Not being able to concentrate.
Can't concentrate, don't enjoy things as much as used to. Very good. Where does anxiety come from? What do you guys think?
Depression.
Can come from depression. What do you think? What is the opposite of hate? Love. What is the opposite of sadness? Happiness. What is the opposite of fear? Unscared. Yeah, what's the Bible's word for unscared?
Evil.
Faith. Trusting that God can take care of things is the opposite of feeling anxious. So I would say, where does it come from? It comes from when you are having a hard time trusting God. Talk to somebody and say, okay, where's the proof in here that I can trust God? If your friend threatens to kill themselves because, okay, here's what it says. If my friend threatens to kill themselves because I don't let them hang out with me and I feel guilty and my friend keeps saying that they will kill themselves if I don't include them, what can I do? Well, first of all, we can put ourselves in that person's shoes and say, why would a person be saying that? Okay, now I'm going to go talk to them and say, hey, where's that coming from? Are you afraid I won't be your friend? What's going on? And if they will not tell you, I would say, you're saying something pretty serious and I don't want to try to guess whether it's true or not. So if that's something you're going to keep saying, I'm going to go find a trusted adult to help me figure out what to do here because I don't want to guess whether you're telling the truth or not. I want to make sure that you're safe. That matters more than anything else. All right, we got through it all. How did I do on time? Did I go super over? Phew. I always go super over.
Give it up for Stephanie, guys. I know that was probably like a lot to take in. It was like kind of drinking from a fire hose, right? But it was really, really good because I feel like either we have those emotions or our friends have those emotions. I know I've talked to a lot of you guys, and a lot of you guys are like, my friend feels this way, what do I do? And one of the two things that Stephanie always said